Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, how we feeling tonight? How's Gville? What's happening in the land?
B, what's going on, my man? All is well in the land. It is hot. The land is hot. We need
That
some
is right.
rain. Rain would be good, but outside of that, it's hey man, we got another day, another week closer to kickoff. So
That's
looking
it.
forward to that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. We are working our way through the summer, through the painful heat and waiting for football season. And yeah, so here we go again. But tonight, we want to take you through something a little different from what we've been doing. So we talked about this before last season. We're going to talk about it again tonight. Little different question here because obviously things changed during the season last year. But the question for tonight's pod is Billy's seat still hot? So we're going to have a discussion around that and kind of get into where we think we were, where we've been, where we are, where we're going, kind of consider some of those factors and go from there. So as always, we'll start things off with our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, and our agenda. Our mission, as always, is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them, and all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, and recruiting data comes from on3.com. Our vision, of course, is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will also evaluate strategy and tactics, discuss our observation of player personnel, decisions, as well as on the field execution. So our agenda for tonight, pretty straightforward, pretty simple, a few things to get into with it, but it's pretty basic. Where was Billy last season? How hot was his seat? How hot did it get? Right. And we'll kind of talk through that. And then where is he going into the 2025 season, assuming it, we'll assume like it starts tomorrow, even though obviously it doesn't, but there's no reason to believe you're going to get a lot of more heat in the offseason. And then lastly, where do we think he will be come the end of fall 2025 or during fall 2025, perhaps? And we'll kind of discuss some of the factors we think will influence that. So that's it. That's the whole agenda. We'll then wrap up and sign off from there. But pretty straightforward, pretty simple. So get us started, if you would, please, and talk to us about where was Billy last season, at the beginning, the middle, the end. Kind of talk us through that, if you would, please, Mr. Randy.
Sounds good, B. How much time do we have? No, I'm kidding. No, it's really interesting, right? So I think we've referenced this on the pod before, right? A tale of two cities, a tale of two halves, a tale of two seasons. If anything, last year it was more like a manic slash bipolar type of season. It was just unreal. So
Yeah.
coming into last season, and B and I talked about this offline. We have the hype, right? We have the hype of, hey, look at the roster, look at who we have returning, look at this, look at this, look at this. Recruiting is up, awesome. And the fact of the matter is, we had every justification to cut bait with Billy Napier. Oh, very, very divisive, very divisive statement. I know. Here's the thing. You show up in the season opener, right, and lay an absolute massive egg. Your first home loss since 1989, folks. It was the nation's longest home opening win streak, 34 seasons. Was. Thank goodness we're still holding on to the national scoring streak in 461 consecutive games. So outside of that, you have the showing. And again, it wasn't just the fact that we lost, it was the way in which we lost against Miami. Just unacceptable. Of course, we bounced back a game later with Samford, that being what it was. And then after that, we play Florida West in the swamp. Yes, I'm not calling them the other named university that they are, but Florida West with a redshirt freshman quarterback that, for all intents and purposes, he's still running. And so you look at the way that the season started, not ideal. 1-2.
No, not ideal. I love he's still running. That's great. He's
right?
Still going.
You see, he is. I mean, Reed, I think his name is. Yeah, he's still going. After that, we needed the Mississippi State game. Thank goodness Jeff Libby hadn't gotten control of the ship there, so we can get a decisive win there in Starkville. But outside of that, the bye week came, UCF came, but I tell you what, those first 3 or 4 games, I mean, it was just air apparent that, okay, parting ways, we're done. Yeah, we're done. We've seen enough. We've got to move on here. This is not a good decision, right? Every justification to cut it. You look at what happened in the bye week. Okay, there's a little bit. Okay, oh, communication. Oh, player meeting with Napier. Hey, scheme, communication. These things got to get better. Oh, okay, interesting, right? UCF game, big turnaround. Okay, cool. Okay, little 2-game win streak here. I like it. Then Tennessee lose Mertz, and then we couldn't keep DJ's pocket clean. Because I tell you what, we had a late opportunity to come back, right? We trounced Kentucky, lose to UGA. Arguably, probably could have won UGA. We got trounced at Texas. Aiden, deer in headlights game. Sorry to say.
Deer in headlights game is well said.
Or I guess deer in headlights or deer in bullseyes. Either way, right? The Broncos.
Yes.
So, and of course, we know the
frozen Matador, if we want to make a bull reference.
Frozen Matador, I like it. But then you have LSU, Ole Miss, and FSU to finish the season. If I had to sum it up, after the first 3 to 4 games, his seat was so hot. We're talking 7th ring of hell. Okay, 7th ring of hell, and you know, you have the come to Jesus meeting and the player meeting, and that was awesome. The communication got better, the accountability was better, the plays, the schemes got more simplified. Awesome. And here's the thing, you've got this juxtaposition throughout the season because Scott Strickland comes out and says he's got support. We're like, oh, okay, so there is support, so we're not paying out $26 million of buyout. No, okay, we're going to reposition that. Oh, okay. Maybe. And then all of a sudden, there's enough Gatorade, because this is the home of Gatorade, to dump it and cool off that seat and take it into a very coin flippy, as you would say, end of the season, to where you end on this hot streak, plus a convincing bowl win to further some of that momentum. It was just unreal, B.
Would you say the Gatorade cooled off the haterade?
Oh,
dad jokes.
You know what? Good dad joke for the reference. I'm not sure how much it cooled it off. Might not have cooled it off enough to worth a darn.
Yeah, it's
but
fair.
It cooled a lot of it off. You know, I mean,
it didn't cool off mine. That's for sure, as anybody who listens to this well knows. But regardless, please continue.
Fair. So that when you look at last season, coming into the season, the seat was not as hot. After the first 3-4 games, smoking hot.
Yep.
Then a couple games after that, starting to cool. Then at the end of the season, cool to the touch. We no longer had the red light on the stove where, you know, hey, warning, it's still hot. Don't put your hand there. So That's the way you look at last season went. So that's why I say a manic kind of up and down, kind of bipolar-ish type of season when it came to that seed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a question here that I think we want to discuss before we move on. What does it mean, or what did it mean, moving forward with an attitude of patience as a school, right? We gave him more latitude, more time, right? We were patient with the process, right? With the ever talked about process, right? What do you think that meant? Not necessarily what does it mean now, but what did it mean then to do that? What are your thoughts there?
And this, okay, great. First of all, how much time do we have? No. So here's what's tough, right? We know when Napier took over, he inherited a Florida team that struggled with discipline, stability, identity,
culture,
a depleted roster, right? But as the famous phrase goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. Yep. And so when you look at that, it's difficult to serve a term or two and then make a turnaround or win immediately, especially when you look at what's happening in today's age with NIL, right? So one can pose the fact that now it's tougher to build a team, develop the team, much less keep the team, and much less win with this era of NIL, right? When you look at the Dark Sith Lord, aka Nicholas Saban, and even Meyer, they were anomalies when what they can do and the impact that they had coming to a team and turning it around. And the thing that's interesting about where we've come to now, i.e. in 4th season, the rebuild, or whatever you want to call it, is effectively complete, right? The standard's been reset. Remember that mention years ago about the Gator standard?
Yep.
Well, and I think we uncovered it, right? This is the closest we've been, on paper anyway, in a minute. So I feel like this 2025 campaign can definitely define this legacy going two ways. Either, guess what, the attitude of patience didn't pay off, or secondly, and we need a call for change, or secondly, this solidified why the attitude of patience made sense instead of being very hastily to ruin the culture and ruin the continuity and break up the glue that was going to build this program for long-term success.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at recruiting too, right? Obviously, the patience there come the end of the season. I mean, I think you could have still solved for recruiting if you did it after game 4, right? If you did it on the bye week.
Yeah.
As far as cutting bait, I think you would have been able to be okay. Would we have finished 7th? I doubt it. But I think the stability and the choice to be patient by Strickland and the interim president there, Mr. Fox, or Dr. Fox. I don't mean to disparage the name there.
Oh yes.
So I think that it definitely helped with recruiting and everything else that you said, right? Do we maintain the immense number of key players that we did in this offseason and not have them go to the portal without that? Absolutely not. I mean, there's zero chance that we're able to maintain the players that we did. I mean, I know we lost a few, but when you look at it kind of proportionally, we did very well, right? We did very well as terms of transfer portal turnover this year. And I think that speaks to exactly what you're talking about. I think those are some of the benefits of the patience. As you're also well aware, I'm not necessarily a proponent of it for that reason, because even though those other things would have been consequences, I think you have to think longer term than just next season, right? So even if next season ends up being down again because you had to make a change, I still think you should have made a change. Hope I'm proved wrong, but I still think you should have made a change because of some of the inherent deficiencies that Napier just can't seem to get out of his own way on, as I have discussed at length and will not do again now. So having said that, I do think there was benefit in it for sure. Did it outweigh the con? I don't know that I'm sold on that yet. This season will tell me a lot in terms of answering that question, right? Because the one thing that this did give us is it gives us another season, at least the start of another season with Billy, and we'll be able to take a lot away from that and kind of say, okay, was it in my opinion, we don't know if it was the right move yet or not, is what I'm trying to say. I still think it wasn't, but I don't know, right? That's an opinion. Nobody knows, right? This season will determine a ton in deciding, was it the right decision or not? Right. And then do we continue to make that decision, or do we make a different one? Right. Depending on what we find out. So those are things that we'll have to see as we come, and we'll talk more of that when we get into later. But I think it's a good point to make sure that we discuss, because we were much more patient than most other teams, universities, whatever would be in this day and age. Right. This is not a common occurrence nowadays. Right. It's cut, bait, and run. And again, we had every justification to do that. We did. Like, this wouldn't have even been one people were like, wow, that was quick. They'd have been like, nah, he needed to go, bruh. So like, it wouldn't have even been questioned. And yet we didn't. And now what's being questioned is, should we have waited? Right. And again, we'll find out. So let's talk about where, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, to that end, what about the former AD?
As in Mr. Foley?
What, Mr. Foley? Mr. Foley, sure as heck, would have cut bait.
I would agree with that.
Look at the precedent he set regarding a Mullen, McElwain, Muschamp. Sorry, 3 M's, right? Back to back to back.
3 M's. Yep, correct.
Well, 4 M's, including Meyer.
Yeah, we were the all M school there for a minute.
I was going to say, so LM, we're on Napier, N. So in other words, Coach O is going to be our next coach. Sorry, I had to say it.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love that. That's great. Oh man, that's really funny. For those who don't get the reference, Coach O was the fill-in coach, the interim coach that stepped in for LSU, and then ended up leading them to a title as getting the title of head coach. Ed Orgeron is the name, Coach O, fondly known as. But yeah, that's who we're referring to for those that might not be aware. So it was pointed out to my attention that sometimes we don't always cite everything fully the way we should, and take little things on assumption sometimes. So I wanted to make sure that we call out stuff like that to try and help give context. So at any rate, yeah, for sure. So do you want to talk to what kind of precedent those coaches had or set or whatever with them being fired? Like, do we want to talk to record now in terms of that, or later?
Yeah, I'm just going to bring this up real quick. And again, in the era of stats and facts and numbers, accurate numbers, I just want
Yep.
to kind of get some context as to where we are. This is ending the 2024 season, and this is more particularly rival games. So the overall record is one thing, but especially when you look at rival games, and rival games for us are defined by Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Miami. So just to put into context, Meyer, coach from 2005 to 10, was 20-5 in rivalry games.
Remarkable.
And if you remember from the documentary, he said out of all the other games, rivalry games, if you don't get hyped for rivalry games, something's wrong with you and you should not be playing in one.
Right.
Okay, there's that. Next up, we've got Muschamp. He coached from 11 to 14, 7-10 in rivalry games.
Yep.
McElwain, 15 to 17, 5-6 in rivalry games.
Yep.
Mullen from 18 to 21, 9-6 in rivalry games.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. And then currently, as we sit here today, Billy Napier is 3-10 in rivalry games.
Big yikes. Big yikes.
And I'll leave it at that.
Yep. Not good things. Now, again, I can excuse some of it the first season because of what he was dealing with from all those aspects you already discussed. But after that, it's got to get cleaned up, right? I think one of the things that actually adds a little pressure to Billy's seat this year, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is Golden. It's getting talked about a lot, but Golden has shown, doesn't matter that it's basketball, Golden has shown that it doesn't take a decade to turn a program around, right? You can do it quicker than that. So I think when you leverage your assets properly, you do the right things, you make the smart roster moves, you make the smart coaching decisions. Falling. Oh, sorry. Little something in my throat there. When you do things that make sense in that regard, yeah, I'm all right. You can really turn a corner on that a lot quicker, right? We've seen that in football as well. It's not exclusive to basketball by any stretch of the imagination. Many coaches have done it. So I think that's where you come in and you look at this and you go, okay, yes, this was a unique situation that he came into. I will give you that. It was as bare as our talent cupboard had been in a long time. It really was. It's not to say we didn't have any, but it was very one deep, right? There was no two deep going on that roster. And then, of course, we already mentioned the culture and everything else. So again, maybe you get an extra year for that, but that was last year, and we saw what happened, right? And not that last year was a waste. As you said, it turned out pretty well. The team really came together and played well down the stretch. And of course, Lagway's influence didn't hurt there, obviously. But overall, when we look at this, 7-5 in year 3, even if you want to write year 1 off, that's like 7-5 in year 2. Fine. That's not great. That's not great. Right. The best of the best coaches aren't doing that. So when you really break it down, there's just really a lot of question marks there. So let's go into it. We talked about this before last season, as mentioned. We said we didn't think his seat was really that hot at all going into last year. Where do we think it is now? So I'll kind of start this out. We have 3 different potential levels. Not hot, which is what we said it was going into last year. And I still feel that's correct, by the way. It just got a lot hotter after what happened to start the year, obviously. Is it quietly hot? So in other words, is it not really getting talked about because of all the expectations on Florida, but really he does have some pressure because of Golden, because of the fact that it is his 4th season and it is time to put up or shut up, right? Or is it smoking hot? Those are your kind of 3 different levels of heat that we're going to look at, right? So my answer to this is I think it's quietly hot. I think that it's actually a little hotter than it's being given credit for right now. I think everybody's kind of like, oh, let's look out for Florida. They're the kind of dark horse pick, right? They're going to come up and do some things. This roster looks good, right? All these different things that we'll talk about in a minute here. But overall, again, I think there's pressure there that he hasn't necessarily had before because there's no excuse anymore. There's nothing he can fall back on and say, hey, just wait. Nah, that time has passed, right? So as I said, it's put up or shut up time. That in and of itself adds pressure, which adds heat to the seat. And then, like I mentioned, Golden. I think Golden winning a national title in year 3, or at the very least putting the team how about just an SEC title? Forget the national title. He wins the SEC title in year 3, right? Those things, turning around a program that under Mike White was going nowhere and getting there quickly, right? You turn that around really fast great work of the transfer portal and everything else, right? Does a phenomenal job and really gets things rocking. And I think that adds pressure to Napier too, not just because it's Florida. I mean, it is because it's Florida, but I'm saying like any coach that does that helps add pressure to Napier. It hits closer to home because it's across the street at the O-Dome, right? So that's the problem there. So for me, I think it's quietly hot. It's not smoking by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely not, anywhere near to as on fire as it was after, week 3 of last season when we were totally ready to cut bait, as you mentioned. We're not there, but we could get back there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So what's your take? Where is he going into 2025?
If I was at Buffalo Wild Wings right now and I'm on the heat meter,
there we go. I like it. I like it.
I would say I'm in the middle. I'm definitely quietly hot because
Okay.
I tell you what, man, it's nothing like so. A couple of things. First of all, great points. I can't say I disagree with any of them. If anything, I'm going to piggyback. You were there for the spring game.
Yep.
You saw the level of intensity. You saw the crowd when that basketball team came out at halftime.
Yep.
I love seeing Billy in Texas supporting Todd in that team. Just supporting Gator Nation. That was awesome. But you can't for a second not turn a deaf ear to the level of pressure that is now on Napier to produce in year 4. I mean, I'm sorry, that was well said.
Mm-hmm.
And I and as soon as that clock ticked down to 0 and Walter Clayton went over and picked up that player, first thing I thought was, and they panned out and Billy was pointing. And I said, "Oh, Billy, you now have a 10,000-pound gorilla on your shoulders.
Yep.
Let's get to lifting. You got to go work with Tyler. Get lifting. Get those shoulders broad and ready and set and good to go." I mean, 134 FBS teams, 362 Division I basketball teams.
Yep.
Right. Different roster, different things to navigate. I get it, but at the same time, I think you put it very, very well said. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't take as long as it should or it can. You utilize your resources, you utilize and leverage your resources, and you make some tough decisions, especially when it comes to the flow of your offense.
Oh, what
kind
an
of
interesting point.
But topic here we have here. You look at your personnel, you look at your offense, you look at your scheme, and you look at your statistics that show what produces the best outcomes given your roster and given your overall depth of talent. Curious.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, we can say that the team is his. We can say that the staff is his. We can say that the system is his. We can say that the culture is his. Everything that he has wanted to do, stemming from Dabo and stemming from the Sith Lord Saban, he's installed, he's implemented, he has moved, he has turned, he has tinkered. The screws are if not tightened, they're 94% tightened. And guess what? Now it's just a matter of, it's yours, Billy. You've built it. Gator Nation will come. Now, when they do come, will the show be put on? Will the production be good enough? Will it pass the eye test? And will you finally be over the hump to produce a very good, stable, consistent product on the field?
Yep, that's well said. And I think that exactly goes to the point. So we're in agreement. It's quietly hot. Where do we think we go from here in fall of 2025, or where will he be during the season? And obviously this gets hypothetical and we understand that, but I think the point we're going to try and bring it back to, what data points will we want to look at in regards to this going through during the season, after the season, whatever the case might be, right? When the dust settles. So let's start this off. Let's talk. There's a few different factors we want to examine here, right? For where he will be going throughout next season, not into, but throughout next season. So first and foremost, roster strength. There is zero question that from a certainly starters perspective, and really even a 2 deep at most of the positions, not all, but most, this is the best overall talent we've had on the team since his arrival, and frankly, in quite a long time. I think you have to get back to maybe some Muschamp days when he still had some Meyer talent on the roster. before you're going to see a roster that is top to bottom as talented as the one that we have the potential to put on the field next year. It's pretty high level. Be looking forward to those 247 team composite rankings when they come out for this season to really look that through and kind of go over the star ratings and everything else. I think that'll be very interesting to take a look at. We talked about it at some length last year on a pod going into, I think, the season preview. Be very interesting to see where that number moves to going into this season. It's not going to jump exponentially, but it's going to move up. I know it will because of the talent that we have present here from a stars standpoint, certainly as 247 would evaluate it. So that's number one is roster strength. Any thoughts on roster strength from you before we get into the next point?
Yeah, great way to start off because on paper, this is the best we've been in many, many years. I would agree we'd have to go back probably 8+ years to find a roster of this talent level. I was looking back at On3.com. On3.com finally ranked this class in the top 10. But for the breakdown of it, 44% in-state and 59% blue chip. That's the most we've had in over 8 seasons. So yeah. Definitely spot on the roster side. Yes, B.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So I'll let you talk more to this because I know you kind of got this drawn up, but just the general point. The next point is this is now Billy's team fully, right? There's really not much of Mullen left on this team as far as recruits go. I know you've got the specific breakdown, but it is fully his roster now. And I would say that even for the guys that were Mullen, it doesn't matter because he's worked them or they've worked themselves or a combination of both into the fabric of this team and the culture that he has built here, right? So this is who he wanted to make his vision for UF football happen, right? The process is there in terms of his recruiting now. It's fully developed. It's fully sunk in. Multiple of his guys with multiple years in his system, right? And in theory, that should matter. I think it matters for culture. We've talked about that extensively. I think there's no question that the culture piece of this thing is in line, right? But there's other things that stand out. But now again, it's fully his team. So what are we doing here? We're eliminating the excuses, right? We're talking about the kind of the reasons why maybe before it was okay, or maybe you didn't think it was, or whatever. But there was things you could point to. So you can't point to roster, and you can't point to the overall talent, but also the fact that they've now been in Billy's system. They're not Dan's guys, they're Billy's guys, right? So talk to that a little bit about the guys that are still left on Mullen's from Mullen's tenure, if you would, please.
Yeah, so this is what's crucial, right? The team goes from 134, whatever the NCAA regulation is going to come down to 105. I believe that's the number they're going to settle on whenever that gets forced, right? But at the end of the day, looking at this entire roster as it stands now, here are your guys that started with Mullen, that basically Billy inherited. Tyreek Sapp, I do not question that he has not bought into this culture one iota.
Not a chance.
Right, coming back from the draft, wanting to finish out his Gator career here, senior, it's going to be awesome. Rocco Underwood, long snapper, unsung hero on special teams, completely bought in. Austin Barber, back from injury and heartache and upset, right, through and through. Jake Slaughter, the glue of that offensive line, the anchor, right? Legacy, Khalil Jackson, coming back from ACL surgery last year. Those are your top 5 that basically Napier inherited from Mullen, like you said. And then, of course, those are the notable ones. Not notables, we're talking about walk-ons, scout, whatever. And there's another 5, and that's it.
Yeah, guys that likely aren't going to see the field outside of maybe Taylor Spirito, here or there. But other guys that probably won't see the field at all. So, and again, it's only 10 total out of those 105 total spots, right? Which includes your well, right now it's still like 120. So really it's right. Less than 10%. And again, only 5 of them have the chance to play, really, when you break it down. 5, maybe 6, right? So now you're talking about a very, very, very small number in comparison. Well less than 5%, of the team is hangover Mullen. Now, 3 of those guys are incredibly important, right? 3 of them are really, really important in Sapp, Barber, and Slaughter. But as you mentioned, they're clearly bought in. They're clearly here for the system. Slaughter could have gone pro. He didn't. Barber could have gone pro. He didn't, right? Those guys came back because they wanted another year to go after this thing with the way this team started to play. So clearly fully bought into Billy's process, Billy's system, right? So another part of Billy's process and Billy's system is on the field execution and flow. And this is going to be one of the big ones for me, right? I think you eliminate the excuses at the first two. You're not going to eliminate the excuse here. I mean, it's not an excuse, it's a fact, right? Because he was the one who chose to continue to be the play caller, regardless of giving other titles to other people. So my question is, will play calling, not play design, we're going to stay away from play design here, because even though that is another piece of this thing, we're going to stay out of it, because at the end of the day, Billy made the decision to stay the play caller slash play designer, right? Really, I mean, hopefully it's less play design by him, honestly, but I'm not going to just assume that, right? Because we have the data to back up that these are his plays, right? He's got his 5 plays and that's what he runs, right? Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry, Miami figured that out. But anyway, we'll move on. So will play calling still be an issue as far as timing, predictability, and aggression versus passiveness? Thoughts?
Okay, do me a favor.
How much time you got?
Exactly. Timing, predictability, and what else, B?
The balance of aggression versus passiveness in situational football, right? As he likes to talk about, right? Situational football, right? When are we aggressive? When are we passive? Do those things make sense? Because I would argue that so far in Napier's tenure, it's been almost completely 180'd from what I would say makes sense, right? Yeah. Running the ball to start a 2-minute drive, right? Passing the ball when you don't need to in certain down and distance situations. And it's not to say you can't try to be a little unpredictable, but again, if you do that kind of every time, then you aren't unpredictable. You're predictably unpredictable, right? So,
well, and that's, I think, when you look at last season, going back to that real quick, I'm just going to bring that up. When you look at, was it Dawson, the defensive coordinator for Miami, and that post-game press conference?
Shannon Dawson. Yeah, correct. Nice. Yep.
Right? When he said something to the effect of, yeah, in the first 10 plays, we guessed, what, 5 or 6 right? Like, what?
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
50%?
And practiced against the 5 plays they ran the most, and whenever they ran them, we just shut them down because we were ready for them.
Wow, if that's not an indictment, I don't know what is.
Yep.
I really don't. So, to that end, play calling and timing is absolutely critical to this offense's success, right? So, with regards to timing, my hope is that that's where Russ has the biggest amount of influence, because to me, timing and aggression go together, because there are times where you want to go at cruise control at 35, 40, 45 miles an hour and wear down death by slow cuts. There are other times where you got to take off cruise control, stomp it, right? Have variable timing control kick in, and then you really got to get to 0 to 80 as fast as you can. So hopefully Russ has a big influence there. To that end, the other thing that's going to be crucial here is, I'm not sure if you saw this, but this was back a few days ago, as far as Zach Alboverdi, back on June the 4th, in his article, ESPN FPI, right, their football power index, has the Gators at number 18 with a top 20 defense and offense.
Yeah, we'll see.
Right? I repeat, a top 20 defense and offense. So you've got that coming into the fold based off the FPI. You've got obviously some shakeable defense. I'm not as worried about. Not as worried. The offense we know, and I think that's what it boils down to, B. That's what it boils down to. Timing, predictability, and aggression. Those things can be mutually exclusive, but at the end of the day, it's Billy's system. It's Billy's guys. He's got a hell of a recruiting class. Will he utilize them? I have a massive question mark around that.
Yeah, I do too. Because that goes to the next point, right? So I think let me just talk to this one a little bit more first. So for me, again, I'll give that we don't see what we want in play design. Yeah, I'll give that, because again, the data would indicate that we won't. If we do, I'll do backflips, but I'm not going to count on it, right? And in fairness, for evaluating him for getting this 4th season and going into it, as much as I'd like to see that changed, I can't have the expectation that it will change when I have 3 years of data saying it won't, right? So I have to kind of put it as a given. I don't like it, but I have to put it as a given that play design is going to be the play design for the most part. Again, Maybe we get some of what Russ Callaway talked about and see some things other than 11 or 12 personnel. That'd be great. I know I keep mentioning it, but it's because I keep wanting to will it into existence that it happens, right? But
Yep. Yep.
the point the point of this is I'm not going to judge Napier's ability to stay, if you will, because if he can make it work with this play design, despite how inferior I think and about know it is, and especially in the passing concepts, obviously, if he can figure it out and get the timing right and get the play calling less predictable by formation, by down and distance, by time of the game, right? If other coordinators can't study that and go, oh, he's almost certainly going to call this right now, and they're right, those are the things we have got to get away from. That can't keep happening. You can't study our 5 top run plays and then smoke us on them because we run them 30% of the time. That's crazy. That cannot happen, right? So those are the things that have to change. If we see those things change, though, and that results into wins, which we'll get to later, that's where I think, okay, you can start making a case for, we may still not love it, but if he's making it work, then he's making it work. And that's different. Then it's okay, right? Then it can be a thing where it's acceptable, where it's possible, where it's not something that we're pulling our hair out and visor throw every week.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the long story short on that one.
It is.
Now the other point that you made. Oh, go ahead.
No. I'm just curious. Sorry for the interjection. Why did he get terminated from Clemson again?
Oh, the predictable offensive play calling that he had. Ineffective and I don't think it was called predictable, but it was ineffective.
Yes, it was.
Play calling.
Ineffective and predictable are the two words that most notably led to the termination of him, OC at Clemson. Yes, sir.
There you go. So you mentioned before I went on into that, my kind of rebuttal on that, or agreement points on that. It wasn't really a rebuttal, but before I went into that, you mentioned, what will we do with leveraging some of this great freshman talent that we have coming in, right? So this goes to our next point, which is the last one before we kind of get talking about win-losses. Personnel decisions. Will we have the right players on the field to start the season, or will it take several games yet again to figure out who should be playing at certain positions and getting the right person in there? And hopefully not because the starter just got hurt and you found out this guy's better, because clearly you couldn't assess that on your own, right? But overall, we look at players that started last season versus players that finished last season. We did that pod 2 ago. Go back and listen to episode 53 if you want to hear it. But what it comes down to is we made some pretty good gaffes to start last year, and I'd argue probably the year before that too, to at least an extent. So what are we going to do, or what is Billy going to do to help prevent that from happening again? Now, listen, can you get a player wrong here or there? Yes, it happens. Everybody does, right? You get guys that you think are going to be great and they don't turn out that way. Now, I hope we duck some of this by osmosis, if you will, because we have so many returning starters that we do think should be starters and should be playing, right? My question is, like you asked, do we work some of these freshmen in appropriately and enough? Maybe a key there is enough, especially at wide receiver, in order to make sure that we are maximizing the opportunities for this team. Those are the questions I really have this year. I don't think we'll have a ton of starters that I'll be like, huh? Right? I don't think that's really going to happen. There's only even a couple of positions really that aren't more or less solidified already, right? So I think we're okay there from that standpoint as far as like what we finished the season with. But like, I don't know if Castell does the thing he did before where he regresses in the offseason, then we got another problem there, right? So, but again, that needs to be identified before we start playing football games. And that's what seems to be missing. A guy shouldn't be a starter just because he was a starter last year, right? Khalil Jackson was a starting receiver before he went down with an ACL. If Khalil Jackson is a starting receiver on this football team on August 30th, I'm turning the TV off. Well, I'll be there probably live, but whatever. I may walk out the stadium because you got to be kidding me. I love K-Jack, but no. There's no way he is even the 5th best receiver on this team right now. Maybe not the 6th. So he can't start, period. Like, that would make no sense, right? So we've got to make decisions that are smart. Make sure we're not just rewarding guys who are loyal, right? Like Mullen loved to do. Emory Jones. There's really a lot of that's going on there. So what are your thoughts on personnel? And we'll move on to wins, losses.
I cannot agree more. I think the couple pods ago that we did that with evaluating the personnel, the
Yep.
decisions around that, I think that's also a great point to make. The fact that yeah, sometimes you get it wrong, but at the end of the day, some of the more blatant, obvious on the field, inside the white lines performance that have not passed the eye test, you would think that those things need to be completely eliminated. And
Yep.
with this, the length, the size, and the depth of this coaching staff and what they're supposed to be doing, if they're telling the players to play for each other, if they're telling the players to hold each other accountable, who is holding them accountable for some of these decisions and putting some of these kids out there that, again, they're great kids, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, we have talent. We have first world problems at some skill positions that if we don't see them, to your point, if we don't see them on the field to start the season, I'm going to be scratching my head pretty rough. So
Yep.
it's got to be there. Those evaluations have to be on point. The right, it's no different than the book by John Gordon, The Energy Bus. We have the right players on the right side of the bus, in the right seat, going in the right direction, and everything else will take care of itself.
That's it. That's well said. That's well said. So again, any of these things go awry, certainly multiple of these things go awry. And I think Billy's seat gets hot real quick. That's kind of where we're going here. But to an overall kind of bigger narrative of when you look at the season, let's talk about win-loss expectations, right? Because we don't like to put numbers on these things in terms of what we I mean, obviously we make our picks and everything else, but we try not to define everything just by wins and losses. But at the end of the day, and in your fourth season with your team, your guys, your talent, right? And the talent is there and everything is in place, your coaching staff, your process, as I keep saying right over and over again, just like Billy does. What are the win-loss expectations? Are we college football playoff or bust? And what is our overall record that would be acceptable? So I'll turn that over to you first. What do you think on those two questions?
It's hard not to see it with orange and blue goggles. It's hard not to see it in lieu of the roster and everything
Yep.
else. And the tough part about it, so let me give a quick recap, B. First game, the season opener, Long Island University. Of course, that was a game that was interjected after a cancellation for another game. Um, you know, in the swamp for the second game, South Florida, USF, playing LSU on the 13th at Death Valley.
At
Then
night, at
at
night.
night, that night, September 20th at Miami. Then we have a bye week. So 4 games and a bye. Then first week in October, we have Texas here in the swamp. Then Florida West at Florida West. Then Mississippi State here. And then we have the bye week October 25th. And after that, Georgia, Kentucky, Ole Miss, all and at. We know Georgia's neutral site, but still. And then after that, we round out the year playing. I'm gonna have to get used to playing Tennessee this late in the year. But
Yeah, it's
Tennessee
weird.
at home
Weird.
and the swamp, and Florida State at home in the swamp.
Yep.
So a couple of flip flops from last year as far as home and away. Outside of that, the only cupcake, if you want to call it that, Long Island University. That is what it is. Overall record, does 8-4 seem realistic? And does 9-3 our ceiling? That's the thing that I am still vacillating with back and forth. Like you said, I want to pick this thing as far as right now and where things look. But
Yeah. So I don't want to pick it, but tell me what he needs to do in order to evade hot seat pressure. What's the number?
But that's the thing, right? The number has to be at least 8.
I
At
agree.
least 8.
I agree.
Because
Eight,
here's
eight,
the
eight
thing.
is borderline, but I think 8.
Okay, here's why. When you look at 8, it's 1 greater than last year. If you can win a couple of tough games, close, or you can really push through and create an upset, maybe against a Texas, just saying, maybe against a Georgia. We'll see what happens there. But if you can build momentum around 8-4, because with the way that some other teams are looking and some of the deficiencies that they have, I get it. We're ranked number 11 or 12 in the SEC. The SEC is still the SEC. I get it. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are saying that 9-3 is going to make the CFP. Wow, that rhymed. I didn't mean it to. But that is no way, shape, or form realistic right now. If anything, that's a ceiling that we have. 8-4 keeps the seat moderately warm, and not to mention, if we can get that bowl game, a more notable bowl game than just a Gatsby Bowl, no disrespect to the Gatsby, it's gonna keep it moderately warm.
Yeah, I would agree, moderately warm, but I think he stays at 8. I think you go much below 8. Well, I think you go one below 8. And I don't think he's still here. I think his seat gets hot enough that he's probably gone at that point. With this team, with Lagway quarterback. Now, we'll talk about caveats in a minute.
Yeah.
But I think with this team, with this roster, with being year 4, and all these things kind of coming together and coalescing, I think it has to be 8. I don't agree with you that our ceiling is 9-3. I think our ceiling is 10-2. I don't think that happens, but I think that's your ceiling with this schedule and this roster and everything else, and the things that we know are going to be the case in terms of play calling and or play design, at least. Well, I say no. I guess I don't know, but we know some of those are still going to be there. Let's put it that way. So
one over last year, one win more.
Yeah, I think you get one win more. It's still a very tough schedule. I think you get one win more, and he's safe. Anything less than 8-4 is a disappointment. And 8-4 is not, ain't nobody doing backflips over 8-4 with this roster, right? I think the expectations for this season are college. I think the expectations are college football or bust from the fan base. I don't think that's the expectation from the administration. I think they're still going to take slow and steady progress, if you will, right? As long as he doesn't regress.
Yeah.
I think they're going to take it, and I think they're going to continue to move forward. That's my take, right? They did that last year, right? I think they're going to do it again this year. Now, I hope we do better than that. And
oh yeah,
I don't necessarily think, like I said, I think it's possible that we can do better than that. I don't know how likely I think it is, but that's another conversation. So ultimately, I think you go less than 8-4, and that seat gets real hot again. I don't know if 7-5 gets him fired, but it's close. It's really close. 6-6, he's gone.
What about the SEC? What about where we finish in the SEC? Do you think it has any wager, that has any weight on the overall record as well?
With our non-conference schedule being what it is, if he went 7-5 with losses to USF and Miami, but finished top 5 in the SEC at 5-3, and that's how he went 7-5.
Oh.
Or call it Florida State and Miami, which I would hate losing those games, by the way. It would be so bad for recruiting.
Exactly.
But having said that, if you did it that way, right? If you had 3 SEC losses and then lost to 2 ACC teams, which would be abysmal in its own way. However, if you did that, then I could see where the position in the SEC might matter.
Okay.
But overall, I wouldn't like I would almost rather it be USF than FSU. FSU. No, FSU, because it's at the end of the year. I wouldn't want to close the season out that way, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think in that regard, you'd probably need to be 7-4 going into that game. And then ideally you'd win it. I think that's probably likely what happens anyway, but for different wins and losses, right? So again, if you only had 3 SEC losses coming into that, and you finished, like I said, top 5, whatever, ties and all that stuff, you finish somewhere in that neighborhood, then I think maybe that would be enough to kind of help hold him on. But if you go the inverse of that, we win all the non-conference and we go 4 or 3-5 in SEC play, I think that could get him fired.
Interesting.
But good question. Good question.
Gotcha.
So
yeah.
We talked about it. Is it CFP or bust again? I don't think so for the administration standpoint. For me, I'd like to see it be that, but for the administration standpoint, I don't think so. But I do think he needs to continue to show improvement, and to do that, I think it does have to be 8-4. And again, that's not a terrible record against this schedule. It, in my opinion, with what we're working with, the talent and prospects and everything else that we have, I think it still should be better than that. But I'm not necessarily going to call for it to be. So any caveats to that, right? We're saying 8-4. We both agree on it. 8-4 is your record.
Yeah.
What if he goes 7-5 or even 6-6, but there's a but? What's the but for you, if there even is one? Is there one at all this year? Because there's always been that caveat, right? We talked about it. Is there a caveat this season? Yes or no? And if so, what?
I don't even want to say it, but it's. I'll just say it's the I word. It's the I
Yep.
word.
It's the I
If
word.
something
Correct.
if something happens this season to where this roster gets depleted and our number one QB gets depleted because of the I word, it's going to be like, are you kidding me? I mean, the perfect storm literally can happen and then
Yeah.
just wipe out
Correct.
for lack of a better term, a perennial season, you know?
Yep. Yep, for sure. And I totally agree with that. And that's my only caveat as well. That is the only thing that could potentially negate, right? If we have significant loss, I'll use the word loss at significant positions, right? Because we don't want to use the I word. Then I think if you have that scenario that is really beyond control, right? Because we know it's not strength and conditioning. Miles has proven that it isn't, right? It's not because of him. So if we see it and it's just a bad luck situation, if it's a Mertz on the turf, right? Mertz with the turf monster situation, right?
Right.
Then there's nothing you can do about that. I really wish we weren't playing Georgia at Jacksonville Stadium again. You go to Leverbank Field and it's terrible grass, right? I really wish that wasn't happening because it seems like we lose 5 guys in that game every year. So I really wish that wasn't happening, but it is. So there's nothing we can do about it. So yeah, I agree. That's the only caveat. There is no other caveat. There's no more, oh, well, just another year. And oh, well, I'm almost there. And no, we're done with all of that. And for the record, I think the administration would probably agree with that at this point, right? Like I said, I think you're in a situation where if you saw regression without loss, they're probably going to be saying, okay, this just isn't working, right? It's just not getting it done. We've got, lightning in a bottle here and we can't strike, right? So it's not good. It's not good. So I think that pretty much brings us to the end here. Any other thoughts on any of that you want to go through as far as where we're at, where we're going in terms of the hot seat situation here?
Yeah, it's a super interesting topic because there's so much at stake. There's so
Yep.
much going on behind the scenes. There's so much subjectivity. I mean, I've talked to a myriad of people where I can't really tell you if there's a clear definitive, right? It's either I really, really like him. He does culture. He does this. He puts the program in a good position. He represents the program well. He doesn't mumble or spit when he talks. Like, okay, and then he's got to go. He's not the right offensive play caller. He's got one of the greatest offensive minds in his back office. Doesn't utilize him. Doesn't care for the input. Continues to fall on his sword as far as calling the plays. And based off of that, with the lack of aggression, and you mentioned earlier, that's what's going to hold this team back. And that's what a lot of people don't appreciate Napier about, is the fact that conservative, calculated, because I mean, you can be calculated and still keep your foot on the pedal, but
Yep.
you can be calculated and you're doing taxes with an abacus and not an HP 412 or whatever calculator it is, right? So that's the issue there. There's such polar views on Billy. Either I really, really like him, or I really, really don't like him. I very seldom ran into people where it's down the middle and yeah, I'm pulling for him, and but then there's this, but I can see this over here. It's year 4. It's put up or shut up. It's Fisher cut bait. The roster's there, and I'm glad you said it the way you said it. There's no more. It was the other guy's guys. No, it's
Yeah.
his guy. It was the
Yep.
other guy's staff. No, it's your staff. The amount of money that's been put into the infrastructure to build this thing, that's like building, coming from Cape Canaveral right over on the East Coast. It's like putting all these resources and hundreds and billions of dollars to build a rocket, and 47 seconds into orbit, the thing blows up, and you're like, oops,
Yep.
you know, and that is just that's just how it stands right now.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, I would actually agree with both of those groups of people that you're talking about. I think they're both right. He needs to go because of these things. I love
Yeah.
him for these things, right? So I agree on both sides. So it is a difficult situation right now. I
Very.
don't think there's any question about it. I think it's a very difficult situation, and it's going to be interesting to see how we navigate it, I guess is what I would say. Hopefully, it's something we don't have to talk much more about because this team does live up to expectations this season, if you will.
Yes.
But again, it's just something we're going to have to wait and see. It's just something we're going to have to wait and see and go from there. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
So with that, we will wrap this thing up. Our next pod will be 2 weeks from now, 6/24, where we will discuss the one and only Mr. DJ Lagway. And we may have some different theme music for leading off that pod.
Yes, sir.
But it will be the entitled DJ Lagway Pod. So we will be talking all about DJ, expectations for him, look at his past season performance in depth, talk about what our expectations are, where we see areas of concern still or opportunity to improve or whatever the case might be. We'll go through all those things, and really looking forward to doing that one for sure. So with that, I'll turn it over to you to wrap things up here, bud.
Absolutely, my man. Hey, great topic today. This really gave us food for thought as far as understanding the degree of heat on that seat. Man, another rhyme. What in Sam Hill? Anyways, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around, Gator Nation.